Hey guys, Basil and Will with Grayson Hobby, and today we have two brand new receivers from RadioMaster. These guys are basically made for FPV drones.
Yeah, these are designed to be S-Bus out, either 8-channel or 16-channel for flight controllers.
Yep. So if you fly airplanes, we just did a video on the RadioMaster airplane receivers, and now we have these two awesome receivers. We got a micro, and we got a full range, and more details are next. We got a micro drone.
Yeah, this is light enough to put on a little whoop or something like that if you really need it to. Any of those little sub 2-inch builds.
And you got a 5-inch.
Yeah, and this is more catered for a 5-inch. Now, can you put this on a 5-inch?
Okay, like always, if you find value in this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, every little purchase you make from Grayson Hobby helps support this channel. Either a pack of props, pack of quads, and a pack of radios. Everything you see here ships from Atlanta. We got a huge warehouse. Everything is located here. We don't do no drop shipping, and it's about 2 to 3 days normally to pretty much the whole eastern border side of the U.S.
Yep.
Also, be sure to check out our Facebook group. Link is below. We got lots of guys helping each other out. Will and I sometimes are on there, sometimes we're not. So, what do you got there, Mr. Will?
Well, we have two more receivers. These are RadioMaster expanding their line yet again. This is two receivers from RadioMaster. We have the R81 and we have the R161.
That one's tiny.
Yes. So those of you familiar with like Crossfire and all that, it's a similar size to a TBS receiver. However, it's 2.4. It's D8, okay? We're going to go over the specs in a second with these, but you'll see two different receivers.
All right, Will. So we got two micro receivers from RadioMaster.
Yes.
They are a D8 and D16.
Yes, which is a FreeSky, FrSky protocol. It will not work with Spectrum. I already know you're going to ask.
Okay.
It will not work with FlySky. It will not work with Spectrum. It will not work with High-Tech. It will not work with Futaba.
All right.
It only works with a FreeSky protocol, which is commonly found in RadioMasters, jumpers, and FreeSky radios. I forgot about those guys.
Yeah.
So we have here the R81. This is a super tiny little guy. It comes with a wire harness if you need to solder it up.
Well, yeah, solder it up.
Well, if you need a servo plug, it comes with it. Otherwise, you can cut this wire solder to your flight controller or whatever. These are designed mainly for flight controller uses and all that. So the R81, you can see, is much smaller than 161 right off the bat. Even though they're both tiny, this is super small, guys. I mean, that's my fingernail right there. This little guy is 17 millimeters by 11 millimeters in dimension. This guy right here is going to be 26 by 21, and it's also about 8.5 millimeters tall. So you got to keep the height in. Look at that! Look at that! Look at the height of that. That's nothing.
Is crazy how that works. And what's that
nice thing about this one? Removable antennas. So guess what? You're not stuck. If you chop off an antenna, you can replace it.
Wait a minute. People break antennas?
It happens. Defective things happen.
I thought they just fall off.
Replaceable antennas on top. So they're not soldered on. They're actually replaceable, which is really nice. I like that.
Yep. What kind of antenna connector is that? Do I need to look for something specific?
IPEX, I think.
Okay.
But it comes with a little piece of shrink tube also. And then you got your bind button right here. So it does have a little bind button right there. This reminds me of an XM, but the XM only had a single antenna. This is a dual antenna. So this is a diversity receiver. So that's really nice. This thing is so small. Now the pinout is labeled. We got minus, positive, and signal here. And then these two extra, they don't have any function. I'm assuming that's probably for programming the original chip on this. So you're not going to use those two that I know of. But you got, again, signal, positive, and ground, and the bind button here. And there's really not much else to that other than the fact that it does support RSSI. So when you bind it, your radio will have a default RSSI signal there. It's not two-way telemetry, so you're not going to be able to get feedback information to your radio.
What about that D8?
It's also D8, not D16.
Is that
so it's an 8-channel receiver.
Wait, hold on. Is that going to make or break this? I mean...
No. I mean, I've used D8 before on a bunch of stuff. A lot of Biden flies have D8 receivers. So, but this is great for little micro builds because it only weighs like 2 grams. Yeah. And then the telemetry, as far as you'll get RSSI on that, but pretty much guys using these are going to put them in drones. with a OSD flight controller FPV system.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to get all that telemetry data on your screen, on your goggles, so that you see. But the radio will have RSSI callouts.
Yeah. And again, this is 2.4, so it's not really made for ultra long range. I mean, if you're going to do ultra long range, there's other systems out there for you.
And one thing to say, RSSI is on channel 9, so you will get a full 8 channels. It's not an 8-channel receiver that the 8 channel is taken up by RSSI. So you actually have 8 channels, which is nice for setting up flight modes.
Yeah, there's a company out there that takes your 8th channel away and makes it RSSI.
So that's this receiver here. This is ultralight super micro D8 receiver. And now this is more of your feature-packed receiver here. This, for the guys familiar with the R-XSR, XSR, etc., this is essentially RadioMaster's version of it, okay?
That's significantly bigger, I'll have to admit.
Yes. But here's what we're going to do right off the rip.
Okay. So we're
going to decase it.
I was going to say, what is your take on this big plastic case there?
So,
and I see what you're going to do with it.
Take it off.
You're not going to like the big plastic case.
I mean, there's some quads that'll fit in there. If it fits in there, why not? But I don't need it because I don't use that. I'd rather get a piece of shrink tube, cover this thing up, because obviously you don't want the circuit board sitting on carbon. But this one has larger connectors. So this is like UFL connectors.
You just took a goofy receiver and just made it like cool instantly.
Sure, if that's what you want. I mean, if that's what makes it cool or not, yeah.
I mean, that looks kind of like childish, but whatever.
Like Spectrum. But so these feature a different antenna. These are really nice heavy duty. So they're not going for super lightweight on this one, even though it only weighs like 7 grams with case. But these are nice heavy duty wires, great for your 5-inch builds to go in the little antenna tubes, stuff like that. They are UFL connectors, so they're nice and solid. They're going to hold on very well. You'll see your bind button is right here. You have 2 LEDs on this one, which will tell you the red for the binding and the green for the status, stuff like that.
Almost like an R6R.
Yeah.
Almost.
Well, funny part, it says R1 D16. R1. What? So the one thing you're going to notice, for those of you guys getting a lot of plug and plays like Diatone and iFlight, etc., a lot of them come with a harness for the R-XSR receiver, which is a very popular receiver. This is going to plug in the same, but the wiring is 1 pin off again.
Yeah, they always do that. Jumper did that, and now this does that. So
funny, the Jumper R1 did it, and the R161 that says R1 on it.
What are you trying to say there, Will?
Nothing. Nothing.
If I decase it, what size shrink do I need to use?
Some of the stuff we have here, this is 14. It'll definitely work. You could, if you're okay with squeezing it in there, the 12 millimeter will be a little tighter, but it'll work too.
So, okay, 14 to 12. Do you think 15 would work if you had it?
12 to 14. Okay. 15 is probably going to be
too big.
Loose fitting.
All right, there you go.
Keep in mind, when you do plug this up to one of the drones that use like a plug and play drone, you will have to pay attention to pinouts. You have ground, positive, S bus, then S port, then RSSI. A lot of the defaults for the R-XSR is ground, positive, smart port, S bus. So the pins will have to be swapped over if you're going to use it. So if you put one in, it's powered, it's bound, but it's not connecting for some reason, check your pin out because it's probably different.
And do I have to cut wires and solder?
No, you can just lift the pin and move it around.
All right, lift. Where'd it go? There we go.
Yeah.
Lift that guy.
Take an X-Acto. I'm just going to do it on this last pin here to show you guys. Granted, you lift it up,
Jeez,
pull it out,
tiny there,
and move it around. So let's just say it's these 2 pins, which is not, but if we need to move it, you can literally just move it around like that.
Yeah, I'll let you do that one for me.
So this uses the standard, semi-standard 5-pin pinout that most of these plug-and-play drones have for an R-XSR. So that makes it easy, almost a drop-in installation, but you will have to move a pin for most of the plug-and-plays out there. But doesn't take away from the receiver. It does have 2-way telemetry, so with SmartPort wired up and set up, you will be able to backfeed data such as VBAT, RSSI, voltage, telemetry data, etc. back to your radio screen. Also allows Lewis grip programming, so you can do tuning and all that through the radio. Nowadays, not as big of a deal, but it does have the ability to do it.
So that's a packed receiver.
Yeah, this is essentially I would say this is basically a hybrid of the XSR and R-XSR because it's halfway in between the sizes of them, and the pinout is the same as the XSR, but it has the removable antennas like the R-XSR.
Okay.
So this is basically this is the receiver to get if you're running D16. You get up to 16 channels.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. RSSI, VBAT telemetry, etc. Smart port.
And it's got a good manual.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions. So really, these are just the 2 receivers you're going to need. If you got a micro drone.
Yeah, this is light enough to put on a little whoop or something like that if you really need it to. Any of those little sub 2-inch builds.
And you got a 5-inch.
Yeah, and this is more catered for a 5-inch. Now, can you put this on a 5-inch?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the range on it is still
they say up to a kilometer.
More than a kilometer, than a kilometer. Yeah, so they're rated at the same range.
But I just like that one on the 5-inch, and I like that on the...
Well, there's certain builds that I've had to use these on, though.
Yeah.
So, I've had a couple builds that this just straight up won't fit, and I don't need the plug, etc. And I've got... In fact, there's a Sedora here in the building that has one of these receivers in it right now. So.
Yeah. And again, these are not long range, so if you're going to fly relatively close and not through buildings and stuff like that, for your average weekend warrior, these are perfect. Either one.
This one is a couple bucks less in the grand scheme of things. Not that it really matters, but if you don't need more than 8 channels and you don't need all the smart port telemetry information, there you go. You got this one. So either one's a good purchase. Again, these things are so stinking cheap. Why not buy a handful of them and keep them in the drawer? Because at the end of the day, you're going to have more than one drone.
Right. And they're almost so cheap, like you buy a whole receiver for your replacement antennas.
Yeah, and that is one thing. You got a $9 receiver, and it's 2 antennas is like $4. Yeah. So at the end of the day, guys, it doesn't hurt to have extras.
Yep. I'm glad they came in. I'm glad we have them. I'm ultra surprised how cool the R161 is without the case. That's what I'm gonna do all my drones.
So basically, this is a great 5-inch, 6-inch quad.
Yeah.
When you start getting your 3-inch and 2-inch and smaller quads where space becomes an issue and all that, that's where this guy comes into play. That's where the R81 comes into play because it's super small and can fit in the tightest of places.
Yep.
Whereas the 161, even decased, is going to be a tight fit on, say, like the 349, the Diatone 349.
But any kind of 5 inches, now they have plenty of room.
Yeah, pretty much any 5-inch build you're going to have is going to fit this, and Cinequads, Cinewhoops or whatever.
Yep.
They're going to pretty much fit this one.
All right. One stupid question I asked Will before we were doing this. Now, this R88?
R81.
R81. Now, the R81, looks like it has pins for a servo header, like the old XMs, right? XM Plus?
Yeah, like the XM Plus.
So I was like, oh, cool, we can put a servo pin in there and solder it up. And he's like, no.
The spacing's different. It is different. You won't be able to just plug a servo pin header into this one. You will just need a solder, but honestly, it's probably better anyway.
Yeah, so it looks like it has servo pins.
Why take a micro receiver and add a bulky plug to it at this point? Quads have gotten a lot smaller and compact and smaller framed,
Yep, so you can't put a servo pin in there.
Yeah, this is the receiver we needed when we were doing the 136 build. The iFlight.
Oh, yeah.
This is the receiver I really need, but instead we put a Crossfire in it because we didn't have this.
So there you have it. There is a micro receiver from RadioMaster and a not micro receiver from RadioMaster.
Well, you got 2 different variations. You got an ultralight nano receiver, about the size of a postage stamp. Actually, that's smaller than a postage
stamp. Super
stamp.
tiny.
And then you got a R-XSR style receiver, so that kind of fits the bill with a lot of people have been looking for.
Pretty much you get your whole spectrum of 2.4. Again, these are 2.4. These aren't the 915 long range stuff. And that's pretty much it's really, really need. All right, so how many are you going to put the small one on the 5-inch, and how many are you going to put the big one on a micro? Why?
I don't